Reloaded patch notes drop a little bit early, and there are some interesting changes in here that weren't expected or kind of asked for, and I'm interested to see what people inevitably think of them, because they're reworking a lot of the contracts, a ton of attachments, and a bunch of other stuff. Beavis and Butthead events coming through. We kind of already had teased of this. I think there's going to be like a free track and a paid track, and then you're going to be able to buy the bundle as well, or whatever. That's just more of money stuff. It is XP based event, so however you get XP the fastest. If you're particularly interested in the Olympia or the pickaxe. So train, we're going to get the UAV as well as a buy station, UAV tower and buy station. UAV tower is disabled in Battle Royale rank. Modes, we're going to get the Havoc Royale. This was already something that we've had in the past, but now we're going to get the Warzone variant of it. It's gonna be 44 players in quads, so 11 teams, 15-minute matches, so relatively quick. And a lot of times it says 15, but it'll be like closer to 12 because you usually shave off about 10-15% of the match just because most people aren't waiting for the final zone to pull that far. Get modifications to the buy station. Gonna have the hand cannon and door barricade, and then a bunch of modifiers. We've seen a little bit of this. You're gonna get multiple modifiers throughout the zones, and then you're gonna get the finale modifiers. So you get the charge jump, which will allow you to just be able to jump further, height, and then velocity affects horizontal distance, how far you're going to be able to travel. Cranked is going to have outlines of enemies flashing red periodically. And this is going to go both ways. Couch potato transforms the operator into a sack of potato. Movement and jumping remains possible while crouched. And then ICU, everyone has in advance. Pretty interesting how that'll play out. Everyone will be like, hey, they got walls. Melon heads. Operators sport a oversized watermelon head. This one's just more of like a silly fun one. Headshots cause explosive damage. Body damage reduced. Head damage multiplier. So it's a little bit more than just cosmetic, I guess. And then make it rain. Ammo and cash are abundant. Bullets are removed from your reserves, not your magazine. Essentially infinite fire. And then the fire sale is also active. And then unregulated airspace. You can call in as many kill streaks as you want if you want to get really spammy with it. And then the showdown. All players receive identical loadouts for the end modifier. And then rising gas, where it'll actually go vertical, which I think there will be some interesting dynamics with the vertical rising gas. And then there's going to be casual rebirth. So it'll be casual resurgence quads. So it's really only going to be 3 teams. That's what it looks like. And then 32 bots. So it'll be a total of 44 players. So pretty standard there. And as I've mentioned before several times, I think casual is fundamentally a good thing for the game and the player base as a whole for multiple different reasons. And my biggest gripe sometimes with the casual mode is that it often is going to push out a normal mode, which I think is the bigger issue, is that casual should be playable as well as normal, because the types of people, the types of things you're looking to accomplish can be done in different modes, and it shouldn't be so restrictive that it says boom, regular player base gets cut off, and then now the casual is the only player base and you kind of have to do it or you just don't play or something like that. So I think it's good to have both modes. Obviously out of region, if you struggle with filling lobbies like OCE, then maybe it's got to have a different experience there with maintaining modes. But for North America and Europe, this shouldn't really be an issue. There's plenty of players on the game at all times, even in the middle of the night. Returning, Resurgence Ranked will be there. And this is going to be in addition to normal BR Ranked. So you can see right here, we got the Ranked BR, Trios, Verdansk, and then Resurgence on Rebirth Island. And then the modes, solos, duos, quads, all the permanent playlists. And we got Plunder quads, Havoc quads, Resurgence casual quads, and then Battle Royale casual is still for solos and quads. So that's kind of where that is there. As a trios enjoyer that doesn't want to play ranked, this playlist sucks. And this isn't new. They brought Resurgence back ranked. A lot of times comes down to just the rewards, that if people really want to grind it. End of day, that's kind of really what it is. What the interesting thing is that people will argue that, oh, there's not enough players on the game, but they're actually trying to host 2 different ranked playlists, which notoriously have less players than the normal playlist. So if they're managing to pull off ranked play for both Battle Royale and Resurgence, there's more than enough players on Warzone. Maybe not across all Black Ops 6 and, multiplayer and zombies, but Warzone definitely has enough players on the game that we're seeing 2 ranked playlists simultaneously. But that's maybe, unless that's just poor decision making. So they'll have its own rule set. And then loot and economy. This goes for all modes, not just the ranked or anything like that. So we're transitioning off of that. New weapons are going to be added, floor loot, and all core modes. So I wonder if they'll make any adjustments to those guns. I think the floor loot in general has been significantly better. Not quite like we had in the first couple seasons, but it's gotten significantly better. Care package will be available in Battle Royale. It's going to be rare loot. And then it's going to have access when you open it, a potential for a specialist, hand cannon, bunker buster, armor satchel, self-revive, door barricade, ammunition box, and armor box. I'm still looking for a clip to see someone actually use a door barricade that actually looks like super 200 IQ. I just haven't seen it yet. Resurgent, but now that it's in all modes, maybe we'll get that level of access. And then updated Resurgence and Plunder lootable perks. We're going to have Shrouded, Irradiated, Loot Master, which is the new one. Cold-Blooded, Reactive Armor, which gets a huge buff. And then we got Bird's Eye, which we'll talk about. So Most Wanted. This is the one that's a little bit weird to me. Most Wanteds now will spawn after the first circle has ended. And that, cool. Whatever. Now it's no longer off rip. You can't land on one. And that's part of the reason they changed it. And I think that's a bad change personally. But before we get into that, let me go through. Contract reveal timers. Below outlines the final circle and each various contracts will spawn on the map. No more contracts will spawn at all once the fourth circle ends. So nothing once the free loadout drops. There's not going to be any random contracts then. Battle Royale Resurgence. So main modes. Most Wanted contracts will not only begin appearing after the first circle has ended, double the monetary payout for killing a Most Wanted target. So they made it so people are more aggressive on getting those. And what's funny here, it says, we have seen a minor problem with the Most Wanted contract being the primarily completed right on drop and being completed with little to no conflict more often than desired, along with the lack of contracts later in the game. So, okay. We will be doing some readjustments, contract spawn. So here's the problem I have with it. Why are players grabbing the Most Wanted contract off of the rip? Because it gives you more money than the other contracts. On top of that, it is fast and efficient to do. So why not buff the other contracts? If they made it so that a recon gave you an extra 1,000 revenue per player, people probably would do them. Same thing with about basically any of the other contracts. You would incentivize people to use those. But what they've done is they've essentially nerfed it, especially when this is a camo challenge. Now you can't do it in first zone, even though it's typically a little trickier to do first zone. And that creates a little bit of a problem. The end game not being enough contracts, they've gone and made it so that there's basically no new ones after zone 4. So I'm not a fan of this change. It's one of those things where I've talked about in the past where they'll go and do like good changes and then all of a sudden they do something that basically nobody asked for. So new perks, we're gonna get Loot Master. It just makes it so, more loot, more higher end loot drops, available Resurgence and Plunder, straightforward. And then Reactive Armor, like I said, it got buffed. Now it regenerates up to full over 35 seconds. I think this timer's too long. People probably still won't use it. This is essentially a buff to Specialist because this is a pretty competitive category for perk. Realistically, this should be 20 seconds and so basically almost a little bit more than half the time. And then Tracker, reduce the total marked targets from 5 to 1. Okay, that's a huge nerf. Close range duration decrease 3.5 seconds down to 1. That huge nerf. Damn, huge nerf. 5 seconds to 1, and then from 7.5 down to 3. Damn. Combat Scout style effect of Tracker was originally intended for support long-range plays over time. It became more dominant at short to mid-ranges. With wall-penetrating visibility removed, the perk was rebalanced to mark multiple enemies. But 5 proved excessive, and this is what we said initially off rip. We're like, damn, smokes plays, that's going to be insane. So we'll see how that one plays out. It's a heavy nerf. People probably will still use it, but it is a pretty heavy, substantial nerf. Grenadier equipment is now deployed faster. Health regeneration delay from explosive reduced from 5 down to 3. So there it is. It gets a little bit of a nerf and a buff. And Bomb Squad damage reduction now applies to self-inflicted explosive damage. Explosive damage reduction increased from 30 to 45%. So if that's enough to get people to use it, I guess if you're running a lot of RPGs. Restock. Equipment regeneration time is increased from 50 to 60 seconds, so it's a little bit of nerf. Scavenger amount cash has also been nerfed. Reflex explosive delay time increased from 1.5 to 1.6 seconds. This time intended enough time to react from an ascender. Okay, so just enough time there. So we get the new weapons, the Olympia, the pickaxe, SVD full auto. This one's going to be kind of an interesting one. This will be in the Beavis and Butthead reward. I think the TR2, the COD Toon ones that come out, I think 2 weeks after that, that one will be the more interesting one. SVD full auto, I think it'll be like one of those ones really hard to use. But TR2, close quarters, it's already a pretty solid weapon in the right hands. And then Gulag pistols. So pistols used in the Gulag will now come equipped with the following attachments: Reflex, Compensator, and then Extended Mag. The Reflex is great, especially for keyboard and mouse players, which rely on visual cues to actually shoot the target. Default loadout. So we're going to get those updated. Cool. LC10, that's W. P, okay, cool. So this is what I was talking about, where they reworked a ton of the attachments, a ton of buffs, I believe, mostly when I glanced at it. And this is kind of a good thing, because then you can like sacrifice an attachment on some guns versus like the AK, you still probably have to lean mostly into recoil. But then it kind of builds some value into having 8 attachment builds a little bit more regularly, because before it's like, the attachment doesn't really do much outside of the 4 attachments that we use. And then now you'll be able to mix it up quite a bit. So a bunch of minimal changes in some cases. So right here, it says the horizontal recoil penalty is reduced from 30% down to 20. So effectively that's 10% improvement in the recoil on horizontal. So rapid fire, if it doesn't do less damage, is going to have like a big buff from this. Maybe still too much recoil for the average player, but then you get advantages like this, where Compensator is going to go from 25 to 30%. Recoil springs, you can see it's not a big difference here from 5 to 8, but in some instances it just might be enough. And basically they did this for all the weapons in the rifle category. They went through and essentially did the same exact changes. And this is nice to kind of finally see some of these where we're getting a little more impacts, where more guns will be easier to use. More guns will have better bullet velocity, therefore easier to use. Will have better hit registration and less visual shake, hopefully. So those are good changes, in my opinion, to open up the meta further. They still need to buff some damage on probably about 5 to 10 different guns for those to be a little bit more viable. But the improvement in this area is pretty significant. Looks like they're going to nerf the range of the Krig and adjust the multipliers a little bit, because it is clearly the dominant one. But this is again where I would have liked to see a few buffs instead of just nerfing the one gun. I know it sounds easier just to nerf the one gun because it is. That is the easiest route. But in terms of like guns feeling good, I think that really goes against that gun feeling good like idea, because what will end up happening is this feels good right now and other guns don't really feel good at the moment. And then now this one doesn't feel good. And if another gun's not buffed, then it's like, well, everything feels not good, which when you're playing a first person shooter and a lot of the gameplay loop is relied on gunplay, the gun should feel good. Just my personal opinion, but that's kind of how it is. So we see the same thing for those guns. XM4 should have got a buff as well. MCW gets a little bit of a range buff, a little bit of damage buff in the mid range. Modified, the multiplier actually got a nerf. STG gets a buff. This is a huge buff. The heck? From MW3, STG got a huge buff. Okay, I spoke too soon. This could actually be fire. Reduced gun kick and visual recoil. Is the STG back? We'll have to look at the numbers. That seems pretty significant. But these were pretty bad as is, so maybe this just makes them barely even. M13B, another buff. Nice. And bullet velocity buff to match. This has always been an issue with the M13. It's not enough bullet velocity. M4, this specifically for the Harbinger kit, so they went and buffed that a little bit. And then C9, okay, it's having all the same buffs for the SMGs, So it just helps with that recoil. This should help with some of these become a little bit more of a sniper support, just because the visual shake and the recoil will be a little bit more manageable. But you can see they went through, and they should have just said they've changed these attachments. I know that there's probably instances where this one goes from 50 to 55 and then another one's from 50 to 60, but for the vast majority of these are basically the same tuning. Striker gets a little bit of a range buff that's negligible, and then a nerf every other range. Bass P, huge buff, but probably not going to impact anything. Decimator gets a little bit of a buff to its range. Vazneb, cool. Guns we haven't talked about in a long time. And these ones are actually some interesting changes. These guns, though, will still have problems with its sprint to fire, slide to fire, dive to fire, handling mechanics, especially more so the MW2 weapons. MW3 still struggles with them, but BO6 is just much smoother gameplay with the guns that you have in those guns. So that's unfortunate, but unless these things are just literally broken, still going to be a 10 shot to kill realistically there, and whatever that TTK is going to put out. Shotgun, all those attachments are also seeing those improvements. And then we get a slight buff to the range of the Reclaimer. LMGs, flinch resistance improved by 15%, so you'll be able to shoot straighter, even if these things are a little bit slower and clunkier. DM10, ooh, this could actually be really good. A lot of people are still liking the DM10. It's more of that higher skill, right hands player type thing. And there you go. So snipers, with this update, we're focusing on class by bringing several options and transforming the Victus into an infinite range one-shot headshot sniper. The changes are designed to give each sniper a distinct role support. Ooh, nice. So AMR, all right, cool. HDR, looks like they're getting slight buff too, huh? Yeah, slight buffs. Same thing. They basically went with the same idea. So good, a lot of buffs in those categories. The Moors, lower torso. We'll see where these all pan out. This is like 180 damage for the Imperium, but I'm not sure the multiplier, what ends up being a headshot. So this theoretically could be a one shot up to 70 meters. And you attack on the barrel, add on the extra range. That could be helpful. MCPR, and then the Victus. So infinite range, it'll be one shot. So yes, so the Victus will be that. And then you can see the FJX, which is much faster, should be good up to like 80 meters. So this might be good, like if you're actually fun, more aggressive sniper, FJX could be probably a better option there. Pistols also get a lot of those attachment tuning. Helicopter icon UI, quality of life. Helicopters will now display an icon even when flying at extreme altitudes directly above a player. Previously, these icons would disappear if your range got too far overhead. That's good. So no matter what, if they're in the vicinity of you, you'll be knowing that they're on the mini map. Advanced splash settings, quality of life, added a new accessibility option in the game, splash icons, allowing players to customize their experience based off the personal preference or need. Players can now adjust the position, center or right, and visibility on or off. These settings, okay, I guess we'll have to play with that. And then a bunch of bug fixes, not an insane amount. So actually a lot more changes than I expected. Some where it's like, why am I scratching my head on this? I think there were like a couple changes in here that could be meta changing because of the Krixie change that nerfs it and then kind of makes everything kind of feel on the same playing field. But there was a few buffs in here that were like, okay, hold up, STG could be cooking. I have to actually look at the numbers, but let me know. Obviously, it's a mid-season, so the content isn't like plentiful or rich. I wasn't expecting that. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.